Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is the post-Wrestlemania show for the Let's Talk Thursdays podcast. I'm Brendan Plays, your host, and I tell you what a week it's been in wrestling. And I tell you what, I'm happy that this show has fallen on a Thursday because I was so mentally drained of wrestling, throughout probably Monday and Tuesday, where I just had nothing left. I know my mind was just brain dead on wrestling because we had such a massive week of wrestling. It feels like, you've gone through a marathon after you get through it all, because how many hours we have? 4 hours of the Hall of Fame, 2.5 of NXT, 7 hours of WrestleMania, 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of Smackdown. Wow. Crazy. If you watched it all, if you really wanted to, you could watch 205 Live as well, and NXT, but you'd be crazy to do that. Wow, just a massive week of wrestling, but, I'm going to say, we're obviously going to talk about all of it in today's show, but I got to say I really enjoyed it. WrestleMania to me, as I said, is just so much fun, and it really was so exciting to kind of sit down and watch WrestleMania. I thought NXT was good, Hall of Fame was great, and, Raw and Smackdown were probably the two best Raw and Smackdowns in quite some time. Just excitement and anticipation, what's going to happen, who's going to show up. It was a really, really fun week, I gotta say. So, big thumbs up from me. I had a great time watching all the action, even if it was very long, but I had a good time. So, obviously this week on the show, it may be a bit of a longer one. Now, I don't know if you guys like the longer shows or not, because I feel like, whenever I do a show over an hour long, I feel pretty bad. I'm like, oh, it's getting a bit too long. But, this one could end up being around an hour and a half mark, perhaps, who knows. There's a lot to talk about in terms of WrestleMania. Now, I was going to do a post-WrestleMania show, which would have took place Monday afternoon for me. But I tell you what, I woke up at 7 a.m. to watch WrestleMania. I had 5 hours sleep. I made a mistake doing that. Should have got a few more hours. But I was so exhausted after watching WrestleMania. I could go for a sleep. After watching WrestleMania, I wanted to have a nap. I didn't want to go on the show for an hour and chat about it. I just wanted to sleep. So I do apologize. I was going to do a show later on in the night, but I was just exhausted. I went to bed early that night because I was just stuffed from watching 7 hours of wrestling. So, yeah, I do apologize. I think it would have been better, I guess, if I had covered it all then, because WrestleMania does feel like a long time ago now. And I knew that would be the case, which is why I wanted to do a show earlier in the week, but just didn't happen. Just did not happen. But probably, not too bad anyways, because it's so... you watch 7 hours of WrestleMania yourselves. I don't know if you really are going out of your way to watch a wrestling show about it. So, yeah, I don't know. But, so this week we'll cover all of the 5 events that took place. We're going to start from the Hall of Fame leading into SmackDown. So we'll go in order of what things happened. We'll brush over a few things and we'll get into the real topics as well. I'm not going to do a full match-by-match analysis, I guess. I'm just going to give my thoughts on the results of the match and, if I was surprised or, not surprised, or if I believe that they should have went in this direction. Just give my opinions on it all without kind of, going, breaking down everything in the matchup. So we'll kind of do a bit of a Cliff Notes version of WrestleMania, I guess. But we'll get into all of it, don't you worry about that. So, well, we better get into it, shall we? So we'll start off with the Hall of Fame. Now, look, I thought this year's Hall of Fame overall was one of the best Hall of Fames I have ever personally watched. What is this, my second Hall of Fame that I've watched live? So I haven't really gone back and watched too many Hall of Fames. I've seen some speeches from certain guys that I'm interested in, but not an entire show. So I can't really honestly give you a full, is this the best Hall of Fame, show ever. I couldn't tell you, but it was certainly probably the best one that I've watched. I really enjoyed the one where Jake the Snake and Scott Hall got inducted, but this one, I just guess having Kurt Angle come back was just so huge. I kind of compare it to probably the one where Hulk Hogan came back in 2005. That 2005 class, wow, was that stacked. Piper and Hogan in the one class was huge. So that was, obviously huge. But now the Hall of Fame has kind of changed. It's really just a big spectacle. It's, long speeches, stories being told. It's it's an entertainment show now. It's not just about honouring the guys, it's about putting on a bit of a show as well. So, look, I really enjoy this Hall of Fame, and I thought Kurt Angle's speech was perhaps my favourite. Obviously, seeing him, he was just entertaining. He just kind of was different to everyone, and he was, a bit goofy, not afraid to really make a fool of himself, and that was the whole point of his speech. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, showcase your personality, and I really believe with Kurt Angle now back as the Raw General Manager, which of course we'll get into later, he might be able to bring some of that personality out of a few guys, especially, obviously, we saw a few backstage segments with him already on Raw. I just feel as though Kurt Angle might bring back some real enjoyment and entertainment in some of those backstage skits that we have been missing quite a lot from Stephanie and Mick Foley, just the boring, drizzling shits of segments and burying the other talent, whereas Kurt Angle's going to, entertain us and bring the best out of those talents and get the most out of them. So, Kurt Angle back is a great thing, and his speech was great. I really liked DDP's speech. I thought it might have been a bit too long. I thought Eric Bischoff did a terrific job inducting him. My favourite, probably, moment of the night, apart from Kurt Angle, was Jim Cornette. I'm a big Jim Cornette fan, and I could listen to him talk all day. He's the king of the shoot interview. I think I've listened to every single shoot interview he's probably done. He's phenomenal. I just love listening to him talk. When he, after I listened to Jim Cornette, after I listened to his induction speech for the Rock and Roll, I came out of it thinking that the Rock and Roll Express is the absolute greatest tag team of all time, and their rivalry with the Midnight Express was the greatest feud of all time, because that's how good Jim Cornette sold it to me. He did a phenomenal job, and he was just awesome. And, he went long. He was 15 minutes, his induction speech, but I was on the edge of my seat. I would just listen to every word intently, so I really, really enjoyed that. Beth Phoenix, I felt as though with her, they were going a little bit over the top to put her over as a Hall of Fame talent. I personally believe, she may not be Hall of Fame, but I've kind of had to think about it now, and I've kind of thought about the longevity of a lot of women's careers here in WWE. How long was really Trish and Lita around for? 6, 7, 8 years? Beth Phoenix, she clocked in, 5 or 6 years or so she just probably falls a little under that category. And she won the championship 4 times, and she dominated the entire time she was here. So maybe she does. I guess with women, you got to kind of half their career lengths in time, and to be a Hall of Famer. They're not around as long, certainly in WWE. That's going to change, I think, now with WWE being a little bit more open to having women at an older age. They're very if you're around that 30 mark, they're looking to really move you on. But now, I think now that, if you're still wanting to wrestle in your mid-30s, I think they're more open to keeping you around, which is great. If you can still do it, you're still as good as ever, they'll keep you around. It's just, obviously women, they want to go away and have kids and whatever, so that's, a big reason why they do hang it up, and obviously that's, in Beth Phoenix's case, exactly what she did. So, yeah, I think she, now that I think about it, she may be passable as a Hall of Famer, but she might be one of those that we forever debate, was she deserving, was she not? And looks as though she probably won't come back. I don't think she looked that interested, when they said, come back for another match, the crowd chanting it, she kind of, moved over that very quickly. I don't think she's very much interested in coming back for another match. But yeah, so, all the other speeches were fine. I still am not really open to the Warrior Award being what that they portrayed it to be right now. I still think, the Ultimate Warrior's whole, let's give recognition to a guy who, won't make the Hall of Fame, but has put in many years into the company. I still think that's what it should be. But, them just trying to crave mainstream media attention by bringing in these guys outside of wrestling, got nothing to do with wrestling, bringing them in and showcasing them and giving them an award. Yeah, it's great. These people, probably deserve some kind of award, some recognition for their, their hard work of overcoming these issues that they've got. But I just feel like in terms of WWE wrestling, does it really need to be the WWE rewarding these guys? I don't really think so. I think they should just keep it wrestling related. But that's just me. I still feel as though it'd be great to see a referee who's been around for 20 years get some recognition. It'd be great to see a guy who, worked behind the scenes, who was a booker, who was a story, a writer, or did something for a long period of time, was great at it, has put in the years and get some recognition. I hope at least they create another award down the line and maybe do that. I think that's probably the next step they're going to take. Yeah, obviously, a referee may not be a Hall of Famer, but, give him an award and say, hey, you put in all these years, and we're going to recognize you here on this, global stage. Maybe they'll give them something behind the scenes, but, let's recognize them on a global stage. And maybe they don't even need, if they don't even have to recognize them, in terms of a speech. The referee, let's say, I don't know, Charles Robinson gets an award for, being a referee in WWE, whatever. He doesn't have to come out and deliver a speech. They could just, play it on the screen. He gets the award, and that's it. They don't necessarily need to have these guys, do a speech or anything like that. But I just feel as though they should be still rewarded. But we'll move on from the Hall of Fame now. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed it. One of the better ones I've ever watched. NXT TakeOver. Yeah, it was a good show. I mean, obviously, they're so down on star power in the brand now. And obviously, Nakamura is now gone from there. So they've taken another hit, as well as Ty Dillinger. So two of their most over guys have now moved on. And I think there's a possibility of more going. Still, strong rumors will Asuka go. They also lost a Revival as well. So, yeah, the NXT is in a bit of a rough patch right now. But they still put on quality shows. That tag team match that they had was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. And some people, I read a lot of criticism. Oh, Bobby Roode and Nakamura was far too slow. I hated the match. I loved it. I thought it was great. I just... I like Bobby Roode so much, and he just is so fun to watch, in my opinion. He just gets it. Just the psychology, he just gets it. I really, really enjoyed it. And, look, if you think it's slow or whatever, well, that's because you're treated to wrestling nowadays. Wrestling nowadays is just go, 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 spot, 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 high pace, fast action. Yeah, that's great to watch, but sometimes it's good to see, a slower pace, psychological match, beat down your opponent, wear them down, then you hit that finishing part and you finish strong, which is basically what they did. I thought it was great, and I really, really enjoyed it. So, the other thing I wanted to mention as well, Aleister Black, he made his NXT debut. I was really impressed. The entrance was different. It was really cool. It was dark. It was, I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice change of pace from what we see here in NXT. He's got all the tattoos. He looks different. He acts differently. I think that might be a good fit for NXT right now, and that gimmicky character may work pretty well in a time where there's not a lot of gimmicks, in NXT. There's a few guys, but, certainly someone who's very different from the rest, I think, could really stand out. And I think Aleister Black, aka Tommy End, has got what it takes to really get right to the top of NXT. I think he may be one of those guys that, in 6 to 12 months' time will be fighting for the NXT Championship and on top in NXT. I think he's going to go all that far. The other, probably the biggest news coming out of TakeOver was Drew McIntyre. He's back. Drew Galloway. He's back in the WWE, but he's going to NXT, which is interesting. And I think a lot of people were very pissed off that he wasn't going to the main roster. Now, I'll tell you why Drew McIntyre should be in NXT. Because Drew McIntyre, his gimmick in WWE, he was 3MB. He was the chosen one, and then he went to 3MB, and he just fell away from there. Now he's gone to the independents. He's gone to TNA. He's gone all around, and he's developed a character. He's done well for himself. It's time to get that character, put it in NXT, and put it to the test, and let's tweak it if we need to. Let's work on that. Let's build on that. And also, the other thing is, look, they've just brought up Dillinger. They've just brought up Nakamura. The Hardys are back. So many other guys have now come back or have made their debut. If Drew McIntyre makes his debut or will return to Smackdown or Raw next week, well, he's going to be lost in the shuffle. He's going to be a guy who people are semi-interested in, and all of a sudden he's going to drop back down to the mid-card and perhaps even further down than that. I feel like he'd be forgotten about. But if he goes to NXT, let's not forget, NXT just lost 2 of their biggest names. 3, 4 if you want to include the Revival Tag Team. So they need to replace some of these guys. And Drew McIntyre, I think, has now gotten a bit of a fan following now from the independents. People are now generally excited and interested in him again. So you bring him down to NXT, and you can showcase him on a stage where there's not a lot of competition there. There's not a lot of guys who could compete with him to take that spot. I think McIntyre can step up and, get himself over with this NXT crowd. And so when he does come to the main roster, he's 100% ready to go. People are once again interested in watching him again. He's got a gimmick down-packed, and he's going to have much more chance of success, because if he goes to the main roster right now, he's just gone. He's going to be lost in the shuffle straight away. They've got so many other guys they're trying to, work on now. You add him into the mix, it's going to be difficult for him. Yes, he's been established in the past, but let's not forget the last time we saw this guy, he was a clown. He was 3MB. So I think this is a plan that, look, NXT needs some guys now. He can fill that void. We can also put him back on TV on a major audience. And you may say, well, hey, he's been this and this and what culture of pro wrestling? Nobody watches that shit. Nobody watches that. Nobody watches TNA. So more people watch NXT than both those shows combined, I'm pretty sure. So you put him here on NXT, or you put him on the main roster. You need to get him established again with this audience and get this audience, familiar with this guy again and move him away from his past. So him here on NXT, I think is a great call, and I think will be a great opportunity for him to prove himself again, that he does belong, that he is, as good as, he was hyped up to be, and everyone's been saying that he is on the independents, how great he is. Well, here's his chance to prove it. He's got NXT, he might have a year down here, and he may have a chance to really do some great things. I think he could even win the NXT Championship. I think he could be the one to beat Bobby Roode, and that's a big possibility. He's a big guy. What is he, 6'4", 6'5"? He's a big guy, got a good look about him. I think he could go places. He failed the first time, but this is the thing, and this is a big issue with wrestling right now and today. Back in the day, if you had a bad gimmick, or you struggled in a company, let's say you had a bad run in WWE, you could go to WCW and you might strike gold with a new gimmick and get yourself over and get yourself on top. So you've got another place to work, and if you leave WCW, you go back to WWE, well, you've established yourself again, and then you can go from there. Whereas in today's wrestling, where do you really go? Do you go to TNA? You can, and it does work for some guys, but TNA doesn't really have a great track record of really salvaging guys' careers. Certainly not in recent times. I mean, Damien Sandow went to try and do it there, and he failed miserably. He's just left TNA, and he's it sounds like he's miserable. He doesn't even, where does he go? Is he going to even contemplate a retirement? So his future is unknown. Cody Rhodes has gone down there, hasn't really done a hell of a lot. So there's not a lot of places to go. So to Drew McIntyre's credit, he's worked hard, he's done the work, and he's got himself to a point where WWE are once again interested in him when they let him go. So this is, I think, a great move for WWE, a great move for Drew McIntyre. It's the right time. He's still very young. He's still got another 10 plus years in the business. I think this could be a great move, and I think this might be a move that could result in him winning the NXT Championship, could result in him getting to the main roster, and maybe getting a good upper mid-card. Maybe, I'm not saying he will, but maybe even a main event guy. I don't know if I personally see it in him. I've never really been a fan of him. So I'd like to see him down in NXT, main eventing takeovers, being on a top position on those cards, seeing what reaction he gets, seeing how he's developed his character. I think he needs to get himself a catchphrase or something to get this crowd involved with him. If he can develop some of those things, keep putting on great matches, we'll see how he goes. Because he's got that size about him where he can, he can be something. And obviously I think WWE sees something in him, but just don't know how to get it out of him. I feel like he needs to find a way to get that, that X factor out of himself. And if he can in NXT, then he may have some success long term in the WWE. If he can't, well, then he might be gone. He may not even make the main roster. If they have him down here for a year in NXT and they just say, well, this guy just doesn't have it, he could be gone again. So I think this is his last chance. It's make or break. We'll see how he goes. I'm, wishing him the best. I think he's, like I said, I was never a fan of him. I liked his theme song, which apparently they changed. I'm not a big fan of that. Hopefully his new theme song is good. I haven't heard it. But, I hope he can have some success, because there's really not a lot else, nowhere else to really go and work. That's the thing. And that's really all to say about NXT TakeOver. Once again, I thought it was a good show with the talent that they've got. They still find a way to put on a good show, and I was entertained for most of the show. I thought the opener, Was it a 6-man tag? I wasn't really digging that. That new girl, Ruby Riott, yeah, I thought she sucked. I thought she sucked. So she may not be ready for that type of match yet. I think she might have to go take her off TV a little bit, keep developing her a little bit more before we put her on weekly television, because I just feel like she just wasn't good. She just wasn't good. She was all over the place in that one. Anyways, we'll move on to the big one, WrestleMania. All right, WrestleMania. If I have to give you a early rating before we get into all of it, I'm going to tell you right now, I liked it. I really did. And I would probably say it was an 8 out of 10. I kind of lean towards maybe an 8.5 out of 10. But more I think about it, the more I'm going down. So I might not think about it anymore. Otherwise, it might go down to a 7.5. The reason why I gave it an 8 out of 10 is because I watched the entire... excluding probably the pre-show. I think the pre-show was pretty poor. But the main 5-hour show that was WrestleMania, I think I watched probably 4 hours of it, and I was loving every minute of it. I really didn't look at the clock and go, oh my god, we still got another 2 hours to go. I looked at the clock and went, oh shit, there's only an hour to go. Oh shit, this show's nearly finished. Already, we've only got 3 matches to go. Oh my god, this has gone quickly. So that's a good thing. And normally if I watch a pay-per-view these days, I'm on my phone or on my computer, looking at a few other things whilst I've got it in the background. But this time I was kind of really just watching the match, just watching WrestleMania and really just enjoying it. So that's a very, very positive thing. I watched WrestleMania with my girlfriend, and she doesn't really care for wrestling that much. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention. With the Kurt Angle Hall of Fame speech, my girlfriend did watch it with the Hall of Fame with me, and she became a Kurt Angle fan after that speech, and she never even knew who this guy was. And after that speech, she became a huge fan because of all the, the sexy Kurt and all the different things he was doing. She just became a huge fan. So goes to show there how good Kurt Angle is. She made he made another fan that night, and he wasn't even wrestling. So there you go. Look, I thought WrestleMania, like I said, was a good show. Is it too long? Probably. 7 hours is a long time. How can they really fix that? I mean, I think 5 hours of WrestleMania, the main show, 4 hours is probably the sweet spot. I think an extra hour was probably just a little bit too long. So they could have easily cut the Smackdown women's match. They could have cut that one out. But where else could they really have cut? I mean... They could have threw, maybe a match on the pre-show. I did not like the Raw Women's Championship match. So if you ask me, I would have cut that or put it on the pre-show. But that's just my opinion. So they could have cut a few things and maybe took it down half an hour. But they just have too many matches. They just, they're trying to get everyone on the show. Every guy in the company, they want to get them all on the show. Even get some NXT guys on the show. They just want to get as many people as they can involved. And it's good for morale. People get a WrestleMania payday. I get that. But I think for the quality of the show, they might need to start looking at it and go, well, we may not be able to get these guys on the show. We might have to cut this one back. And unfortunately, they're going to miss out. And, it sucks. But I think it's extra motivation to get there in the next year. To improve it and get yourself in a position where you deserve to be on the card. That's my opinion. Look, I think they can go away with the pre-show for 2 hours. I think the pre-show only needs to be 1 hour. I don't think they need to play all the video packages and all the advertisements throughout the pre-show. Just have a 1 hour pre-show. That's all I think you really need. A 1 hour pre-show, and talk about every match, but you don't need to run video packages, because you're playing those video packages later on the night anyway. So if you watch the pre-show, you end up watching the same video packages later on the night. So I found myself throughout the night, whenever a video package was going on, well, I'd go get a drink, go do what I have to do. So I'm not really paying that much attention to them because I've already seen them earlier on. So if they cut them out, have one match on the pre-show, I think they can cover it all in an hour pretty comfortably. The Austin Aries and Neville match, I was surprised that Austin Aries lost. I just feel as though if you build Austin Aries up as this, the number one contender, and Austin Aries is probably one of the only guys getting a reaction from nearly everywhere he goes, getting a good reaction wherever he goes. I feel like you don't mess that up. But in saying that, Neville's been doing very well for himself, and I'm sure Austin Aries will get a rematch, and they'll have another one for it. Maybe he wins, and they trade the title back and forth a few times, kind of stretch this one out. That might be the plan, obviously with Neville winning in an unclean fashion. So, yeah, I'm guessing that's where they're going to go with it. But I probably would have maybe had the big title change happen. Maybe because it was on the pre-show as well. They figured we'll wait until Backlash. Payback, isn't it? We'll wait till Payback instead, and we'll have it on the main show, and we'll do the big title switch there. And if that's the case, then whatever. But so if they're not going to do anything with the pre-show match, I mean, why bother having it? But the other one was the Andre the Giant Battle Royal match. Mojo Rawley won, and once again, this is WWE's desperate attempt to get on ESPN, to get some mainstream attention, media, publicity, whatever you want to call it. This is their desperate attempt. Who is it? Rob Gronkowski, or is that the Gronk, or whatever they call him? He's some footballer, and if you're like me, I don't watch American football. I think he plays for the Patriots. Look, I know of American football. I know a lot of the rules. I can sit down and watch it and probably enjoy it. But it's not for me, it's not a part of my culture, so I just don't care about it. So when this guy comes out, and the only reason why Mojo wins is so to give this, celebrity a spot on the show, I just think that sucks. And I get it, they've been pushing Mojo. I don't know why. I don't see the appeal in Mojo. I don't think he's a good wrestler. I don't think he's a good talker. I don't think he's really getting much of a reaction. So, I mean, I guess the obvious would have been have Braun Strowman win it. Have him throw everyone out and make him look like an absolute beast. Especially if the plan is Strowman and Lesnar. That's exactly what I would have done. It's predictable, but I don't give a shit. Use this battle royal, give it to another big guy, give it to a monster that you're building up. Whereas Mojo Rawley, I think that the jury's still out on this guy. I think he's still trying to prove himself. I still think the company is still testing the waters with him as a singles. I think as a tag team is still where his only real potential of winning anything is I can't see him winning a championship in the WWE. I just feel like there's so many guys I would rather have in front of him. So I was surprised that he won. And I don't understand Jinder Mahal's getting the final spot and getting that big spotlight put on him as well. That was very odd as well. And they even had him on Raw the next night as well, kind of featured again. So are they doing a little bit more with Jinder? Are they starting to see something in him too? I don't know. His physique is just ridiculous, but other than that, there's really not a lot to him. So, yeah, that was odd, and I'm not a fan of that. Like I said, I think using that match as a way to get a celebrity over, I think was ridiculous. The start of the show was perhaps my favourite match of the night, Shane McMahon and AJ Styles. I thought, this one could surprise us and could be good, and it did. It was a great match. I thought it was probably the best one of the night, a great way to kick off WrestleMania. Shane McMahon doing a lot of things I didn't expect him to do, having a bit more of a technical matchup, and I think that kind of surprised all of us. But I think it was certainly the way to go. I think that was certainly a good idea to have that kind of match, something different from Shane McMahon, and obviously AJ Styles was just terrific as well and put on a great performance. So the right man won. AJ Styles won. I was worried for a moment that they might have Shane win, but I'm glad AJ Styles won. The women's match, I don't really care. I didn't like it. Bayley won. Moving on. The tag team triple threat match. The Hardy Boys have returned. I think there was Jericho and Kevin Owens in between that. Look, I would have had maybe Jericho win, but if Jericho's going to leave, I get it. But I just would have, I think the storyline would have been nice to see Jericho get that win and close it out. But since he's going, Kevin Owens has to win. That's fair enough. The Hardy Boys, they're back. And I'm myself, just like many others, were worried that the New Day was going to be the team in the match instead. They brought out the Hardy Boys, and wow, what a reaction. What a reaction that was for them coming out. That was massive reaction. 60,000 people, and I know they said 75,000, but it was not 75,000 in the crowd. But a huge crowd, all of them on their feet, loving the fact that Hardy Boys are back. The crowd was great. The crowd was great for WrestleMania. The crowd was great for Raw. The Raw and Smackdowns afterwards as well. It was great to see. Great reaction for them. They didn't miss a beat. doing some crazy spots as well. Twist of Fate off the top of the ladder, Swanton Bomb, onto Cesaro, onto the ladder. Crazy. These guys are still crazy. They might be 40 years old, but they're still doing all the crazy shit they want to do. Now, the broken gimmick. Is it going to happen? Yes, it will happen. But they're locked up right now in this legal battle with TNA. Do they run the risk and do the gimmick? Look, you'll see some subtleties about it. You might not see the accent, but you might see the delete catchphrase, or maybe even Brother Nero. I don't know. They might see a few things about it. If WWE and then the Hardys can win this legal battle with TNA, I'm sure they'll go with this character. But I don't think WWE is going to go and do all the crazy things that the Hardy Boys have done with it. Maybe they will. Maybe the Hardy Boys have negotiated a deal where they want to have more creative freedom and creative control over their characters, and what they do with them, and having the freedom to create their own segments and backstage things, and have their own ideas implemented. So maybe that's in their contract. We don't know, but I'm sure they would have tried to negotiate something there. But it's great because he gives us another tag team, and the Hardy Boys versus the Revival would be great, versus American Alpha would be great. Even the New Day, I can't stand the New Day. I think they are on my shit list right now. I'm calling it. They're on my shit list. They've made it. They are on the shit list right now. Hardys versus Enzo and Cass as well. So some great tag team possibilities there. And once they've explored all those, well, then you can go in their separate ways. Jeff Hardy as a singles guy, well, there's money in that. We all know that. We all know Jeff Hardy. I think the WWE always wanted Jeff Hardy before he left to be a major singles guy, a major star for them, and he was, but he just had too many issues, and they might not give him that big push, and may not give him the world title, but I'm sure that he'll be involved in main events going forward as a singles. Matt Hardy, on the other hand, I still feel as though, I still always thought Matt Hardy was just the mid-card guy out of the two, but he's developed a character where he's probably at this point more popular than Jeff. He's got the delete chance, all these different things he's got going on, so maybe he will get there. And maybe they split him up, when they do the next draft, and have them go their separate ways and do whatever there, and it could work. I'm sure, the money right now for WWE is the Hardy Boys tag team. Let's do that. Let's get them back on TV, established once again, and then maybe we can think about singles after that. I think it's going to be a similar circumstance with the Dudley Boys. The Hardy Boys will probably lose more than they'll win. Obviously tag team champions right now, a big return, but they might end up losing more than they win in the end of it. So we'll see. But with the Dudley Boys, they didn't have a singles run, and I don't think anyone was really craving a singles run. Maybe a Bully Ray singles run would have been okay, but he's much older than the Hardys, and the Hardy Boys are much more over at this point. So we'll see how they go, and we'll see if they can sustain that. We haven't really seen too many promos from them either, so I'm sure we'll get to see a lot more from them coming forward. And moving on from that, look, there wasn't really a lot else that I really wanted to get into. I thought Bray Wyatt losing the WWE Championship to Randy Orton was just an absolute terrible mistake. Shocking mistake. I cannot believe that Bray Wyatt lost. And Randy Orton, as soon as he won the championship, I felt bored. I'm a big Randy Orton fan, but I really didn't want to see him win the championship. I really feel like at this point in his career, he does not need to win any more championships. Maybe one more in a few years' time. But I don't see the point in this. I don't see the point in having him be the champion. I think the crowd felt the same way. I think their match was really bad. I think that was the low point of the show. That match, I think, put a lot of people, took a lot of the interest away. And that was the beginning of the downfall of WrestleMania. I will say this. I think Goldberg and Lesnar probably had the best match under 5 minutes that I've ever seen, at least seen in a long time. I loved it. It was just boom, boom, boom. Let's get out of here quickly, but let's give them everything they want in a nice small package. And it worked. It was good. I think everyone came away. I didn't really see any complaints. I don't think anyone really came away from that match being disappointed. I think, we got what we expected. Suplexes, spears, jackhammers, F5s, the crash through the barricade. So it was just a car wreck, of a match, but in a good way. And I enjoyed it. And Lesnar winning, we expected that. Goldberg looks as though he's retired, he's finished. So he may come back and do something else if they want him to. But I think it's time for him to probably move on. I think the crowd are just starting to get a little bit more negative to him and starting to boo him because I think they're really smartening up to the idea of, look, he's not really going to be wrestling very long when he is going to wrestle. So I think the crowd is starting to be a little bit negative towards him, and probably right now is the time to move on and go. And he, the Raw talk after Raw, he got a nice reaction, some mixed reactions at first, but he brought it back. He brought it back, and the crowd ended up respecting him by the end of it. So 2 big retirees in one space of 24 hours, wasn't it? So there you go. As well as that, we had the Smackdown women's match, Naomi winning it back. No real surprise. I thought that was always going to be the plan. It might have ended up being Naomi and Alexa Bliss 1-on-1 at WrestleMania if an injury didn't happen. I hated that match because I thought there was going to be a surprise. I thought we were going to see someone come out, someone return, someone be involved in that match, because that was the way they were building it up. Anyone could show up. Who's going to show up for this thing? Who's going to be in it? It was the same people that they advertised. So that was very disappointing. So when I saw that one, I was very disappointed. And they had to bring that on the main show? I mean, what the hell was the point of that? That was main show worthy? I mean, second last match of the show worthy? I don't think so. I think obviously that was a match that they used to have in between a couple of big matches just to rest the crowd a little bit down. So a lot of people saying, oh my god, I can't believe this match co-main event. It didn't co-main event. It was just put in that place to let people, relax a little bit before they get into the big one, which was Roman Reigns and The Undertaker. Well, Undertaker's officially retired. He has hung up the boots. He's put the gloves and the jacket and the hat in the ring. He's done. And Roman Reigns beat him 1, 2, 3, clean in the middle of the ring. The match itself was terrible. Botched spots all over the place. Undertaker just looked like he had enough. He just looked like a guy who just couldn't do it anymore. You go to like an independent show and you see a 60-year-old guy from the 80s trying to still do it, and it's just embarrassing, and you feel bad for him. You feel bad that he's here trying to get a payday. That's how it felt with The Undertaker, and that's a real shame. I just feel like he probably went a couple of years too long. But, look, he came back, retirement, done. And, look, I think they missed a trick. I think they really missed an opportunity to have Undertaker and Roman Reigns be a retirement match. And if you go into this match with the notion that this is The Undertaker's last match, he's going to retire after this one, well, doesn't that, create a little bit more buzz, a little bit more attention? Because I saw a lot of, mainstream media reporting on The Undertaker retiring. I saw a lot of people talking about it online. So, if you have this as the build towards it, I feel like you get a few extra buy rate, or network subscriptions, whatever you want to call it. I feel like you get a little bit more buzz, a little more interest, and I feel like if it was the main event, I feel like people will be a little bit more invested in the match. So I feel like they missed a trick in not advertising as such. Maybe they didn't know until the night that Undertaker, look, I'm going to retire this one. I'm done. I can't do anymore. Maybe that, they didn't know. But I feel like they missed a little trick there. But look, Undertaker gave it his best shot. He took a damn spear through the table, for goodness sake. You got to respect him. He has had one of the greatest careers of all time. He may be the greatest of all time. It's debatable, but I think he is definitely one of my favorites I've ever seen. The best gimmick wrestler by far of all time. He was terrific. And a 30-year career. He was around a long time. He was around before he was The Undertaker as well. So he's been around a long, long time, and he's had a great run, a great career, and, was basically on top throughout his entire WWE career, wasn't he? He had a 25-year career in the WWE, and you'd have to say he was on top I would say the whole time. He came in and won the championship right away, and he was always, one of the top guys ever since, and that is just phenomenal. That is unbelievable when you think about it. 25-year career, and you remain on top for the entire time. in the last 5 years he's been part-time, but it's always been a big deal when he's come back. So, yeah, I mean, as they said, thank you, Taker, because this is a real shame. A real shame that he's gone. He's, like I said, he's been one of my favorites. He probably held on a couple of years too long, but, he just loves being the Undertaker, just loves wrestling, and, wanted to keep going for as long as he could. And now, the discussion. I had a lot of people on Twitter arguing with me about Roman Reigns winning. I had a lot of people in my Brendan Plays live chat when we were discussing WrestleMania Live on my forums, which was a great time, by the way. I had a lot of people saying to me, Roman Reigns should not have been the guy. Roman Reigns beating The Undertaker is a real kick to the nuts. It's disgraceful. It's awful. It's disrespectful. This guy who can't even wrestle, this idiot beating The Undertaker, I cannot believe it. I think it's a lot of bullshit. Now, I think Roman Reigns beating The Undertaker is absolutely fine. I think Roman Reigns should be the guy to beat The Undertaker. If it wasn't going to be John Cena, I think Roman Reigns is the perfect candidate. Because The Undertaker, he needs to lose in his last match. I get it. If his streak was still alive, him and Reigns ending the streak, that's a different story. But the streak's already gone. So, Undertaker losing to Roman Reigns is a big, big win for Roman Reigns. Now, it didn't result in a heel turn. Some people thought he turned heel on Raw. He didn't turn heel. The announcers didn't play it up as he was a heel. The announcers just said, Reigns, had the match of his life at WrestleMania and the biggest win of his career. This is going to be great things for him going ahead in the future. If he turned heel, they would have said, this son of a bitch, I can't believe Roman Reigns, he's retired The Undertaker, the crowd's giving it to him, that's great, whatever. So, he didn't turn heel. That's the end of the story. So he didn't turn heel, but he gets this massive victory over The Undertaker. It just gives him a platform to catapult himself beyond what he already was. And whether you like him or not, you got to accept that this is WWE's guy. This is the WWE's guy who they believe, they look at their roster and they think, well, this is the right guy for us to put our money in, invest in, give him these big wins, give him the championships, be the poster boy of our company. John Cena is in and out at this point. They need someone to take his place, step up. And you could already say, well, why don't we give it to a guy who's not established? Well, this is beating The Undertaker. This is going to go down in history as a massive, monumental moment. This is Undertaker's final match. So, do you give it to a guy who you're still not sure about, like Braun Strowman? Or do you give it to a guy who you believe he's already been around for 5 years, he's been on top for a good 3-4, he's, been champion, he's main evented WrestleManias 3 times in a row now, I think it is. You give it to him, and you try and catapult him and turn him into a main event star to the star. This is their plan. This is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make Roman Reigns the number one guy. And people don't like it, people hate it, but honestly, can't really see why. People told me, Brendan, he can't wrestle, he sucks. I completely disagree. The Undertaker match, I think he did the best job he could have done. Reigns is not a guy who will carry you to a 5-star classic. Let's be honest. But Reigns, he can put on a great match. He puts on a great performance. And people said this for years about John Cena, that he can't wrestle. But yet John Cena's had 20-plus classic matches. But, John Cena got carried by Edge, he got carried by Shawn Michaels, he got carried by, this and this, CM Punk. But, it takes two to tango. And if John Cena's had this many great matches, well, then there's a reason why, because he's just as good. He may not have all the technical moves in the world, like, CM Punk or whatever, but he can still put on a great performance. And Roman Reigns, I think, falls into that category. He does his job. He does his part. Now, look, I'm not a Roman Reigns fan. I'm not defending him, really. I was just really annoyed by these comments that I found all over Twitter, people complaining so much and the crowd giving it to him and saying that he doesn't deserve it and that there's someone else, they should have given it to someone else. But I can't name anyone. I asked people in my chat, who the hell do you give it to instead? Who is the guy, the rightful guy to give it to? Seth Rollins? Well, he can barely, he's on one knee. And Seth Rollins, he got a win just as big as the Undertaker win against Triple H. Maybe not just as big, but still a huge win. And the storyline was always there. So, not the right guy at the right time. The only other guy I can think of is Braun Strowman. And I think Braun Strowman being the Undertaker would have been great, and I would have liked it personally. I think he probably would have been my choice. But I can see why they're hesitant. They're not really giving Strowman the ball yet. They're passing it to him, but then they want it back. And they're not quite giving him the opportunity to run with it. You know, they haven't given him a championship yet. They're still having him lose to guys like Roman Reigns. They're still having him now, lose the Battle Royal and things like that. So whilst he gets a lot of momentum, they're just pulling him away from it a little bit. So they're not giving him that full chance. So yes, beating the Undertaker would have been great, but they're still unsure about him. And some people tell me, well, why don't we give it to Cesaro or Sami Zayn? Are you fucking kidding me? Sami Zayn is just... he's a great wrestler and all, but look, I just cannot stand him. And a guy like him beating the Undertaker, give me a break. Roman Reigns at least has the size, he has the look, he looks like he could beat the Undertaker. And that's the other thing, you've got to have someone who can match up with the Undertaker. There's not a lot of guys on the roster that can. At least Reigns can, at least he looks believable. So, I may get a lot of criticism here, people telling me that I'm an idiot, but that's fine. But I really believe that Roman Reigns, from the choices that they had at the timing, this was probably the best choice that they had. Maybe Strowman, and I probably would have been just as fine with Strowman. I personally thought a triple threat match might have been the way to go, just to protect the Undertaker a little bit more. But I get it, his last match, they might not want to do a triple threat match, just have the complete spotlight on the Undertaker. I kind of get why they did that now, but still, I think Reigns was the right choice, and he's getting booed out of the building, which is the thing. That's the thing. This guy. He came out on Raw and said, it's my yard now, which is a great heel thing to do, and that segment was absolute gold. The crowd just giving it to him, just, shitting all over him. He's going to talk, and the crowd boos even more. That was awesome. That was really, really cool, and what he said, I thought was fantastic. I feel like he might have had a full promo to come out and cut, and I feel like they probably changed plans halfway through, and he's like, you know what, let me just say this, and it worked perfectly. So... what they're doing with Reigns, their booking is the main issue. And that was, after I had my discussion with a dozen people on Twitter, I think they all came to the agreement after what I said. They said, okay, I get your point, but I just don't like the way he's been booked. And I completely agree. Roman Reigns, he's been booked to be a heel, but he's not. So they need to decide, are we going to turn the guy or not? Because he's acting like a heel. People are booing him. Do we remain him as a babyface? I guess the thing is, if he turns heel, what really changes? Does his persona really change that much? Maybe tweaked a little bit. Maybe he's more of a, maybe more cocky, maybe more arrogant, maybe more of a dickhead. But I don't think he really changes that much. I think the crowd will, some of them boo, will the people still boo him? Well, if they cheat him, it would be just moronic, because Roman Reigns, if he turns heel, he's still going to beat everyone. He's still going to win all the time. He's still going to dominate. He's still going to be the number one guy. So nothing's really going to change other than, a few personality traits. And instead of versing the heel wrestlers all the time, he's going to verse the face wrestlers. So there really isn't a lot of change that's going to really happen. So I think, I think the fans just need to accept it. Yes, you keep on booing him, but at the end of the day, the WWE look at this and they see Roman Reigns come out. They see him come out and verse the Undertaker, gets booed out of the building. They see him come out on Raw, gets booed out of the building as a positive thing, because there's not a lot of guys in the WWE that get a reaction. And wherever Reigns goes, whether it be boos or cheers, he gets a reaction. And in WWE, they need reactions, because Cesaro comes out, he gets a nice, polite applause. Sami Zayn comes out and, he gets a nice, polite applause. Dolph Ziggler comes out, gets a polite applause. Roman Reigns comes out and gets booed out of the building. And you might say, oh, it's X-Pac heat or whatever, go away heat. I don't really, I don't think so. I think, people would pay to see Roman Reigns to lose, whether babyface or heel. I think people hate Reigns and would love to see him lose. So, in WWE's mind, that's a positive thing. In WWE's mind, people don't like Roman Reigns and they want to see someone beat him. So, who's going to beat him? And they want to, cheer the guy that's up against him. The only real way to get rid of Roman Reigns is if it's the same thing with John Cena. If he comes out and he gets no reaction, he comes out and gets, crickets, then all of a sudden, oh shit, we got a problem. But when Reigns comes out and gets the biggest reaction of the night, whether it be boos or cheers, you can't blame WWE. You got to look at that and go, well, this guy, he's the only guy in the locker room getting this type of reaction. well, we can't exactly take him off TV, can we? We've got to keep using him. We've got to keep pushing him. So, I'm defending WWE a little bit here, but I understand their position, understand what they're doing, understand why they're going with Roman Reigns. Should I still believe he should be a heel? I mean, he's acting like a heel. He feels like he's a bit of a bad guy in real life. So I think it'd be a hell of a lot easier for him to play a heel, and maybe his personality would shine a lot more if he was a heel. That's, the big reason why I'm going for that, because I think he is a natural heel. And if he was a heel on television, I just feel like he could, we might see a little bit more personality, because people say he's got no charisma, people say he can't talk, he's got no personality. Well, maybe because he's just struggling to play the role that he's been given. So, I just felt as though I needed to get that in, because I was very frustrated. I was very vocal on Twitter about it as well. I think there's just no one else that I believe that could beat The Undertaker, and, because Reigns is already established, yes, but this win, I think, catapults him to that next level. They want Reigns to be on that John Cena, Randy Orton level that they've got right now. Reigns and Rollins and Ambrose and, Styles and whatever, they're main event guys for sure, but none of them are on that John Cena level. And that's what their plan is with Roman Reigns. They want to get him to that next level, and this big win, it may help him, it may not, but only time will tell. But I understand what they're trying to do. And do I agree with it? Some ways I do, some ways I don't. But we just have to live with it. And it's happened. At the end of the day, the streak's gone. Lesnar beat it. Undertaker losing at WrestleMania now. It's not as big of a deal. It's a big win for Reigns since his last match for Undertaker. But Undertaker's old school. He wants to go out with a loss. That's just the way that these guys go. And if Undertaker wins, what does that do? Roman Reigns comes out, he gets a loss. And Undertaker, he retires with a win. It's a great feel-good moment, but, how does that, benefit Raw the next night? It doesn't. Reigns, he gets the win. Look at the reaction you got. You run with that for a while. Reigns gets the momentum, and you keep going with it, and that creates interest on Raw. So, people thinking that Undertaker should have won, I think it's just blind hate towards Roman Reigns and not really thinking smartly. Yes, you're thinking more as a fan, but you got to step back, think of WWE and their decision making as a booker. This is the right call to make. This is our top guy. We need to protect him. We need him to give him this big win, and we need to book for the next 6 months of shows. And this guy beats The Undertaker, well, he could be our top guy for the next 6 months. If he loses to The Undertaker, then all of a sudden, well, we might need to look at a different direction, and maybe we need to go elsewhere. So that's my thoughts anyways. So I was very frustrated by all that. But the good thing is that Jim Ross, he was back for the match. I forgot to mention that. He's back for the match. Not as good as he always has been. He's kind of, lost a step a little bit, but you can understand he's going through a rough time right now. Just great to see him back in the WWE family. I think he signed a 2-year deal, so that's great. It's a bit of a Legends deal. So hopefully we see him back calling maybe a SummerSlam match, Survivor Series match, some big matches, just big matches, big pay-per-views. Let's see him back. Let's hear him call it. And I thought the commentary, Tom Phillips, just in my opinion, does not belong on WrestleMania. I just don't think he's a WrestleMania commentator. Mauro Ranallo was really missed. I think Mauro Ranallo is absolutely great. He's my favorite commentator since JR, without a doubt. So, I hope he's back soon. Alright, so we'll get into Raw and SmackDown. We've kind of touched on it a little bit. Kurt Angle's general manager, an amazing moment again. Huge reaction. The Teddy Long tease was good. And that is now going to lead to the brand Shakeup. So it looks as though we're going to have maybe some trades, maybe some guys, I wouldn't say drafted, but changed from brand to brand. How do I see it going down? I think there might be 5 from each brand switching over, maybe even a couple of debutants brought in. What would I like to see happen? Well, I'd like to see the women on Raw broken up. That core of 4 women on Raw needs to be broken up. I would probably have Sasha Banks go over to SmackDown and probably bring Becky Lynch over to Raw. I think Becky Lynch is feuded with basically everyone that she can feud with over on SmackDown, and Sasha's feud with everyone that she can feud with except for Bayley. But I don't think they're going to turn Sasha over in Raw. So I think that would be a good fit, an even trade as well. They need to bring some tag teams over to SmackDown ASAP. Enzo and Cass needs to go. Maybe the New Day or the Revival. I think they need to bring some over desperately. Now that they've lost the Vaudevillains as well, they're down another tag team. They obviously lost the Hype Bros not long ago as well. Slater and Rhino, they're practically done as well. They've got no tag teams there, so they need tag teams. Need them, bring them over to SmackDown. In terms of top guys, the big rumor is will Reigns swap for AJ Styles? I think it's not a bad idea. I think it creates fresh matchups for sure. But now with Reigns and Brock Lesnar, that match potentially going down, they might hold off on that trade. I think that's a match they might do next year's WrestleMania more than likely. So maybe they don't need to necessarily have that happen. They might have Reigns win the Royal Rumble again, or Lesnar wins the Royal Rumble to get that match. I don't know, but they'll do something there. But I think you could have Reigns, jump over. Roman Reigns, who can he feud with? I mean, if AJ Styles stays, Reigns and Styles would be great again. We have seen it. Reigns and Baron Corbin, Reigns and Bray Wyatt. So, there's a few matches there that we've already kind of seen, isn't there? So, in my personal opinion, what I would do is I would have Dean Ambrose and Kevin Owens switch, have the US title go to SmackDown, Intercontinental Championship go to Raw. Because Dean Ambrose is versed everyone there is to verse on SmackDown, and Kevin Owens is versed everyone there is to verse on Raw. So if you have Kevin Owens jump over, well, now you create Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, Kevin Owens and Dolph Ziggler, Kevin Owens, John Cena when he comes back again, and AJ Styles. I just think there's a lot more matches there. Kevin Owens and Shinsuke Nakamura. I forgot about that. So there's a few more matches that they definitely could do there. I would like to have seen Kevin Owens and Finn Balor have a rivalry over the Universal Championship, but unfortunately Lesnar has the title, so that's not going to happen, which is a big shame. I think that's a bit of a mistake as well. I would not have done that, but so we'll see. It's hard to really kind of tell. They didn't really tell many details about it, so it could be a complete shake-up. Who knows? It could be each GM gets to pick a few guys to steal from either brand. I think that would be pretty cool. There could be some more debutants happening. There's still definitely more guys to come up. We obviously saw a lot happen on Raw and SmackDown, and a lot of guys come up. But I think there's going to be a few more still coming. Certainly women. I think they might see a new woman or two. Maybe Asuka. She might get the call up. So that's where I'm at with that. It's hard to really predict what's going to happen, but all I know is that it should make for a pretty exciting next week. I think it's all happening on Raw, is it? Or is it happening on Raw and SmackDown? I'm not 100% sure. Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, that match was teased. I think that would be a great SummerSlam match, and I think Strowman beating Lesnar would be awesome. I think that'd be a massive win, and I think that's a match that I think Brock Lesnar might have to, pull out a couple of extra moves other than the German suplex to make that one happen. So I personally would really like to see that one. We thought Roman Reigns was going to come out, or maybe Finn Balor was going to come out and confront Lesnar. It turns out to be Strowman, and as soon as Strowman's music hit, I just went, oh shit. I got pumped for that. I was excited for that. So that's definitely a match I think needs to happen. And, whether you like Strowman or not, I think he and Lesnar would match up well. We also saw a couple of returns. The first one was Emma. She finally returned. And she got no reaction. And, it is what it is. Unfortunately, it just wasn't that great of a, no reaction, no real, buzz about it. I think people were just tired. I think, a 6-month layout, she's hasn't been been around for months, and, we're waiting, and by the time it came, they waited too long. The Emelina thing was just a ridiculous idea. Whoever thought of that just needs to be fired, honestly. And then to say, you know what, forget about Emelina, we're going to do this other character. I mean, give me a break. It was just stupid. So that was a complete waste of time. But Emma is back, and hopefully she can regain the momentum that she had before she got injured, and hopefully she'll be back in the title picture, because she's great. I really think she's great. And as I said, another return, Finn Balor. No surprise, but he's back. And I tell you what, Finn Balor's going to be the guy on Raw. If Reigns goes to SmackDown, Finn Balor's going to be the number one guy on Raw. I think they see Balor as absolute money, as a star. My girlfriend's favorite wrestler, albeit she doesn't watch much wrestling, but she loves Finn Balor. She loves him. She thinks he is amazing, great looking. She thinks he is an amazing wrestler. She loves the Demon. She loves everything about him. Women love this guy. Men think he's cool. Kids think the Demon is great. He's got the entire package right there. The only thing he's lacking is he's not 6'5" and he's not 250. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. So can we look past that? Yes, he looks a bit small. If he matched up with Brock Lesnar, he'd be a bit small. Matched up with Reigns, he might look small. But I tell you what, people like this guy, and I think he's going to go somewhere. In my opinion, strap a rocket to him, let him fly. He's going to go big places. I think Finn Balor is going to be a big star. I really do. I've been saying it for the last couple of years now, ever since he came. I think he's got everything down packed. It's Finn Balor's time. Let's hope he doesn't go down injured again. I think he's going to win the Universal Championship sometime this year. And I can't wait. I cannot wait. I think it's going to be exciting to see him. And he might be the guy that people, start cheering for. He didn't get that amazing of a reaction. I mean, he, when they thought it was going to be Finn Balor, people were excited that his music kit was great. But when he got in the ring, it wasn't, the crowd wasn't, all over him. Maybe they were a little tired. It was a 3-hour show, happened right at the end of the show, which I can, forgive. There's obviously a lot of other things that happened on the show. So, yeah. So maybe we'll see in the next, coming months how Finn Balor's perceived. I think people are going to be very positive and very excited to see him back. So I personally am definitely excited to see him. And that was Raw. So I thought this was probably the best Raw, maybe since the draft, around about the draft. I think a lot of things happened there, or maybe even since last year's. I think this was, the whole WrestleMania week was a lot better than last year. I think WrestleMania this year was just blew last year's WrestleMania out of the park. Last year's WrestleMania was shit. It sucked. And I don't remember what I said on this show, if I liked it or not. I think I might have been pretty positive and said, yeah, it might have been great. But I think, last year had the worst booking I've ever seen for a WrestleMania. It was just stupid. And, even the Raw after wasn't that, exciting, to be honest. So, this year had it all. This week of WrestleMania just had it all. Every show was fantastic. Moving on to SmackDown now. Again, another great show. We saw Ty Dillinger debut, beating up Kurt Hawkins. I think as soon as he said open challenge, I think we all know, all right, who's debuting? So that was cool. And Dillinger debuting had to happen. He's so over. This 10 chant is just taking over right now. It's the new Yes chant. Not to that extent yet, but it might get there. Who knows? People love this guy as well. And he's a guy who's been in developmental for a long time. FCW days, he was around. So he's been developmental for a long, long time, and he's finally made it. So you got to give the guy respect for putting in all those years and finally getting here. I certainly respect the guy. So he's got a gimmick now that works. People like. He's getting a great reaction. He's got a chant that people will get into. People will chant. So that's what you need. You need a catchphrase. You need something for the crowd to chant. And when you got that, something you can put on a t-shirt, that's money. And he's got it. So I think he'll be a great. I don't think he's going to be a main event guy. I don't see him as that, but I think definitely a mid-card champion, Intercontinental champion, US champ. I think that's where I see him winning plenty of those championships. And you never know. He might, he's got he's pretty tall. I mean, not that well built or anything like that, but we'll see. I don't think his gimmick really is main event worthy, but you never know. You never know. I think really his gimmick is more of a heel gimmick, isn't it? I'm the perfect tan. I'm perfect. I'm amazing. It's a heel gimmick, but he's running with it as a babyface, so we'll see. So that was great to see him. We also saw Nakamura debut. I mean, how special was that? That was amazing. Nakamura, the violinist coming out, and as soon as we saw that guy, I knew he was going to be Nakamura. I thought the violinist didn't really do that great of a job, though. I thought it didn't really sound that amazing, so he probably could have been a little bit better. But anyways, that's just nitpicking. Nakamura coming out and doing nothing, just doing his thing and standing there and leaving. So, it was a great reaction. Great to see him, and I hope he's on SmackDown. I hope he stays on SmackDown, because SmackDown need another guy like him. Like I said with Finn Balor, strap a rocket to Nakamura as well. He's going to be a star. I think he could be. Have we seen a Japanese WWE champion? Not in my time throughout watching wrestling. Maybe in WCW days or whatever, or back in that the 80s or whatever. But I haven't seen one at least in a long, long time. So I think Nakamura is going to be the one. I think the crowd love him. They love the theme song. They love watching him in the ring. He's got it all. And the prospect of watching Nakamura and AJ Styles, Nakamura and Seth Rollins, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, it really is exciting, isn't it? There's a lot of matches there that I think people are going to be very, very excited to watch. So Nakamura here in the WWE, I think is going to be fantastic. Let's hope that Vince gets it. Let's hope that Vince doesn't shut it down. Let's hope that Vince is a supporter of him so he gets the push that I think he deserves. And having The Miz as his first opponent, if that is the case, is the absolute perfect idea. Now, the only problem that Nakamura is going to have is he can't talk. He can't talk. He struggles with the language barrier. He can speak basic English. And I remember I met Nakamura when I went to NXT. I met Nakamura in an elevator, and I had a bit of a elevator conversation with the guy. And maybe he just was in a bad mood. I don't know, but he didn't really seem that sociable of a guy, in my opinion. So I don't know. Can you really have a guy like that on talk shows and whatever like that? Probably not. So that's going to be his perhaps downfall of ever reaching, the absolute top. But there's a big market for wrestling in Japan, and if WWE has a Japanese guy that can appeal to that market, that's big. That's big, and that's something they've always wanted. I think Nakamura is that guy. And he's not just your generic great Japanese wrestler. He's got a character. He's got this unique look about him. He's got just a different, unique guy, and he's got something special about him, doesn't he? So let's hope WWE uses him to his full potential, and if they do, I think we're going to see great, great things from him. AJ Styles, some people were telling me, look, oh my god, I can't believe AJ Styles turned face because he shook the hand of Shane McMahon. Again, people, look, he did not turn babyface. I just had to reject that. He did not turn babyface. Just because a heel shakes the hand of a guy doesn't mean he's a babyface. A lot of the time, yes, that is a turn, but, when he basically said, look, I respect you, you did a good job, shake my hand, he'll be back to his usual self next week. He didn't turn babyface. So if you think he did, I'm sorry. I got bad news. He didn't. And the main event of Smackdown, we saw Eric Rowan. He returned earlier on the show as well, and he was part of the main event. And he's back with Bray Wyatt, which needed to happen. Eric Rowan cannot go by himself. He needs Bray Wyatt. Otherwise, Bray Wyatt needs Eric Rowan as well. They need each other. So, but I've come to the conclusion that I really don't like Randy Orton as champion already. I'm really kind of over it as already. Just the promo was not good to start off the show. It just feels like the same old, specifically at a time where we're seeing so many different things, so many new exciting people coming along, so many new exciting things that go back to, Lesnar as the Universal Champion, Randy as the WWE Champion. So I feel like they've taken a big step backwards in that regard, and I hope they're both transitional champs or interim champs or whatever, and we see someone take the belts from them soon. Maybe AJ Styles and Randy Orton have that big rivalry, and Styles takes the belt. Maybe Roman Reigns and Randy Orton have a rivalry, and Reigns takes the belt. So who knows? But I really am not liking Randy as the champion at this point. But, so that's your SmackDown recap. That's your WrestleMania week recap. And surprisingly, we fitted in on a pretty decent time. So the only last little piece of news that I've got is Simon Gotch from the Vaudevillains has been released. He's asked for a release, and he's got one. He is done. See you later. And all I can say is good riddance. Apparently this guy was a troublemaker backstage. People didn't like the guy. He rubbed people the wrong way. And when you're like that in the WWE, you're not going to survive. And probably a big reason why the Vaudevillains got buried. Because they, I don't use the word buried very much, but they got buried. A hot tag team in NXT, come to the main roster, had a decent start, then they were gone. Losing all the time and gone. I think Gotch might be a big reason to blame for that tag team's demise. Just his attitude backstage, how people perceived him, could have been a big reason why. And now he's gone, where will he go? I don't think he really can make it on his own. I don't think people are going to really be clamoring to see him on TNA or anything like that. I don't know. He'll have to get a new gimmick, repackage himself. Who knows what he can do with a new gimmick? I have no idea. Maybe he can make it work. Maybe he can't. I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And the other, I guess, the real loser in this situation is Aiden English, a guy who I think does have some good talent. He's, got a different look about him, and he could be something. But him as a singles, I don't know. I don't know if he can survive. I don't see him going very far. They might have to repackage him as well. I don't know. I don't know. So maybe we'll see Aiden English gone as well. And I will say this right now. It's not the last, firing or release you're going to see. It is firing season. It's coming up. May is generally the month where we see a lot of guys cut. And in recent years, not that many. Not as many as usual, but we may see a few more get the chop. And who do I think? Well, I would say I would get rid of maybe a Darren Young, Summer Rae, Alicia Fox. I think Kurt Hawkins can go again. Did I say Titus O'Neil? I think he should probably go as well. We got rid of Jack Swagger. I would have said him. So yeah, there's a name, a few at the top of my head. Maybe Curtis Axel. Maybe he's done as well. So Sin Cara, probably he could go. So there's a few guys that they could probably get rid of and nobody would really care. And I'm sure there's plenty of guys on NXT they might be able to get rid of too. But that's on the top of my head. So firing season's coming up. We'll see who makes the cut and who does get cut. So that'll be very interesting to see. But that is all we have for your WrestleMania, post-WrestleMania edition of the Let's Talk Thursdays podcast. I hope we covered everything. If we missed anything, I apologize. I'm sure we did. I kind of just went off the top of my head for a lot of things. I know we didn't cover every single WrestleMania match. I think we missed a few. I think we didn't talk about Seth Rollins and Triple H, which I thought was good. But I didn't want to go too long today because WrestleMania's kind of come and gone. And myself, personally, I'm kind of a little jaded from it myself. And I just wanted to lay all my thoughts down on the table here and let you guys kind of sit back and enjoy and listen in. So I hope you did. And we didn't answer any questions this week because I figured it's WrestleMania. You guys basically need to be asking me about WrestleMania. So next week we'll be taking more questions. So make sure you leave a question for next week's show. You can also leave a voicemail. You can do that on the website, BrendanPlace.com. Questions in the YouTube comment section. I'll open up the Facebook page every single... Well, we generally open that up on Wednesday. So after Smackdown quite often. If not, give it a look on Wednesday. So that's generally when you can see it. And leave a question over there. So that's on the Facebook page, facebook.com/BrendanPlays. Give me a follow on Twitter as well. @BrendanPlays is my Twitter handle. And subscribe to my second channel. We're uploading wrestling shoot interviews and podcast clips over there. So a bit of a central hub for all of your wrestling shoots and interviews and things like that. So give that channel a look as well. We just started that one up and so far so good. We haven't really promoted it too much yet, but I'm very happy with the progress of it. I think we've got 40 videos already up there, so plenty of things to watch over there, so give that a look as well. And I hope you enjoyed the episode of the podcast. If you can leave a like as well and subscribe to see more, I would appreciate that. Have yourselves a great week, and we'll be back better than ever for next week, as I guess we start the new year, the new wrestling year. I always think WrestleMania to WrestleMania is the wrestling year. So I think we're starting a new year in wrestling. And we've already started, I guess, but we continue on in what will be a brand shakeup. I think there's going to be a lot to talk about next week. So do not miss the next week's show. And I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week.